The crying wouldn't stop. It had been going on for over an hour now, and Rebecca felt like she was losing her mind. She sat in the back of her black Mercedes, staring at her reflection in the tinted window. Her makeup was a mess. Black streaks of mascara ran down her cheeks. Her perfectly styled hair was coming loose from its pins, and in her arms her 6-month-old daughter Lily screamed like the world was ending. "Ma'am, should I pull over?" Her driver James asked for the third time. His voice was careful, polite. He'd been working for her family for 5 years and knew better than to push. "No, just keep going," Rebecca said, though she had no idea where they were going anymore. The doctor's appointment had ended an hour ago. The board meeting she was supposed to attend had started 20 minutes ago. Her phone kept buzzing with messages she couldn't answer because she was too busy trying to calm down a baby who refused to be calmed. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to her. Not to someone who had built a tech company from nothing, who had been featured in Forbes magazine, who had given speeches about work-life balance at conferences. She was supposed to have it all figured out, but right now, stuck in downtown traffic with a screaming baby, Rebecca felt like the biggest fraud in the world. She tried the bottle again. Lily turned her head away, her little face red and scrunched up. She tried the pacifier. Lily spit it out. She tried singing even though she had a terrible voice. Nothing worked. The crying just went on, each wail feeling like a personal failure. "Maybe she's hot," James suggested gently. Rebecca had already checked. 3 times. Lily's temperature was fine. Her diaper was clean. She wasn't hungry. She just cried and cried and cried. Through the window, Rebecca could see people on the sidewalk staring at the car. Even through the tinted glass and the city noise, they could probably hear Lily's screams. Rebecca imagined what they were thinking, probably wondering what kind of mother couldn't calm her own baby, probably judging her just like she was judging herself. Her husband David was in Singapore for work. He wouldn't be back for another week. Her mother had offered to come help, but Rebecca had said no. She was a successful businesswoman. She could handle a simple doctor's appointment. She didn't need help. What a joke that was turning out to be. The nanny, Patricia, had called in sick that morning with the flu. Rebecca's assistant had rearranged her entire day to make this work. One appointment, just one. How hard could it be? Very hard, apparently. Rebecca looked down at Lily, whose tiny face was soaked with tears. Her daughter's eyes were squeezed shut, her mouth wide open, producing an endless stream of heartbreaking cries. Rebecca felt her own tears starting again. She was so tired. She'd been up half the night with work emails and the other half with Lily, who was teething. Or maybe going through a growth spurt. Or maybe just hating her mother. Rebecca honestly couldn't tell anymore. "I don't know what you want," Rebecca whispered to her daughter. "Please, baby, please tell me what you want." But Lily just cried harder. The car inched forward in traffic. They were near Central Park now. Rebecca could see trees, people walking dogs, joggers running past. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Everyone else seemed to be having a perfectly normal, manageable life. Why couldn't she figure this out? She thought about her team at the office, probably sitting around the conference table right now, wondering where their CEO was. She thought about the investors who were waiting for her presentation. She thought about the deal that might fall through because she wasn't there to close it. Then she looked at Lily and felt a wave of guilt so strong it almost knocked the air out of her lungs. What kind of mother was she? Thinking about work when her baby was in distress. But what kind of CEO was she? Missing crucial meetings because she couldn't handle basic parenting. She couldn't win. No matter what she did, she was failing someone. "Ma'am," James said, and Rebecca heard something different in his voice. "I really think we should pull over. Just for a few minutes. Get some air." Rebecca was about to say no again. They needed to get home. She needed to change, fix her makeup, jump on a video call. She needed to salvage what was left of this disaster of a day. But then she looked at the park again. At the open space. At the fresh air and sunshine. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Pull over." James found a spot near the park entrance. Rebecca grabbed her purse, made sure she had her phone, and stepped out of the car. The moment her expensive heels hit the sidewalk, she realized how ridiculous she must look. A woman in a designer suit, hair a mess, makeup smeared, carrying a screaming baby into a public park. She didn't care anymore. The fresh air hit her face, and for a moment she just stood there, bouncing Lily gently, trying to remember how to breathe. trying to remember that this would pass. That baby's cry, that it wasn't the end of the world, but it sure felt like it. She started walking without any real destination in mind. Just walking, just moving. The park was busy with the lunch crowd. People eating sandwiches on benches. Students lying on the grass. A group of kids playing soccer. Normal people doing normal things. Lily's cries seemed impossibly loud in the open air. Rebecca could feel people staring. She kept her head down and kept walking. Her phone buzzed again. Then again. She pulled it out with one hand, still holding Lily with the other. 17 missed calls. 32 unread messages. Her assistant. Her CFO, her husband. Her mother. Everyone wanting to know where she was, if she was okay, what was happening. She couldn't answer any of them. What would she say? That she was falling apart in a public park because she couldn't figure out how to be a mother and a CEO at the same time? That she felt like she was failing at both? Rebecca found herself near a playground. There were mothers there, sitting on benches, chatting while their kids played. They looked so relaxed, so comfortable. Like this parenting thing came naturally to them. She spotted an empty bench away from the crowds and headed toward it. Next to the bench, an elderly woman sat alone, throwing breadcrumbs to a group of pigeons. The woman wore a simple floral dress and a cardigan that had seen better days. She looked peaceful, calm, like she had nowhere else to be. Rebecca collapsed onto the bench, still bouncing Lily, still desperately hoping the crying would stop. She was so tired, so incredibly tired, not just from today, from everything, from trying to be perfect, from trying to have it all, from trying to prove she could do this. She closed her eyes and let her head fall back against the bench. Lily's cries filled the air around them. Rebecca felt tears sliding down her own cheeks again. But she didn't bother wiping them away anymore. She just wanted this day to be over. She just wanted to know how to help her baby. She just wanted to stop feeling like such a complete and total failure. The elderly woman next to her cleared her throat softly. Rebecca opened her eyes, suddenly embarrassed. Great. Now she was crying in front of strangers, too. This day just kept getting better and better. That's quite a set of lungs she's got, the elderly woman said. Her voice was warm, not judgmental. Just kind. Rebecca wiped her face quickly, trying to pull herself together. I'm sorry. We'll move. I didn't mean to disturb you. Oh, honey, you're not disturbing me. The woman smiled, her wrinkled face folding into gentle lines. I raised 4 children. Believe me, I've heard worse. Much worse. Rebecca let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I can't get her to stop. I've tried everything. I'm a terrible mother. Now that's just nonsense, the woman said firmly. She shifted on the bench, turning to face Rebecca fully. You're here, aren't you? You're holding her, trying to comfort her. That's what good mothers do. They show up. Lily's cries seemed to get even louder, as if protesting this conversation. Rebecca bounced her daughter gently, feeling completely helpless. Her arms ached. Her head throbbed. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten anything. What's her name? The woman asked. Lily. Beautiful name. The woman reached into her worn canvas bag and pulled out a small piece of fabric. Rebecca watched as she unfolded it carefully. It was a little cloth doll, handmade, with button eyes and yellow yarn for hair. The stitching was uneven, but done with obvious care. I'm Dorothy, by the way, and this here is Miss Button. I make these for my grandkids, though they're all too grown up for dolls now. Rebecca didn't know what to say. The doll looked like it had been made decades ago. Simple, old-fashioned. Nothing like the expensive electronic toys Lily had at home. The ones that played music and lit up and cost more than most people's weekly groceries, may I? Dorothy asked, gesturing toward Lily. Rebecca hesitated. She didn't know this woman. Didn't know anything about her. But there was something in Dorothy's eyes. Something calm and steady that Rebecca desperately needed right now. Okay, Rebecca said quietly. Dorothy didn't try to take Lily. She just leaned closer, making the little doll dance in front of the baby's face. She moved it slowly, bouncing it up and down, side to side, and she started humming. The tune was old, something Rebecca vaguely remembered from her own childhood. A lullaby, maybe, or just a simple melody that grandmothers had been humming to babies for generations. At first, nothing happened. Lily kept crying, her little fists clenched tight. But Dorothy didn't stop. She kept moving the doll, kept humming, her movements slow and patient. No rushing, no frustration. Just steady, gentle persistence. And then something changed. Lily's cries got a little quieter, her eyes red and swollen from tears, focused on the dancing doll. She hiccuped, her body still shaking with leftover sobs, but she was watching now, actually watching. Dorothy made the doll peek around Rebecca's arm, then pop up suddenly. She made it wave its little cloth hand. She made it dance on Rebecca's knee. And all the while she kept humming that soft, timeless melody. Lily's cries turned to whimpers, then to little gasping breaths, then incredibly to silence. Rebecca stared in disbelief. The baby who had been screaming for over an hour was now quiet, her eyes fixed on the simple cloth doll with its button eyes and yarn hair. "How did you—" Rebecca's voice cracked. "I tried everything. Every toy she has. Every song I know. How did you do that?" Dorothy smiled and gently placed the doll in Lily's chubby hand. The baby immediately grabbed it, bringing it to her mouth to gum at one of the button eyes, but she wasn't crying. She was calm, content even. "It's not about the toy, dear," Dorothy said softly. "Babies can feel what we're feeling. You were so wound up, so stressed out." She could sense it. Made her anxious too. Rebecca felt fresh tears spring to her eyes. "I just wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to do this right." "And you are," Dorothy said. She reached over and patted Rebecca's hand. Her skin was wrinkled and spotted with age, but warm. Being a good mother doesn't mean being perfect. It means loving them even when things are hard. Especially when things are hard. They sat in silence for a moment. Rebecca could hear the sounds of the park around them. Children laughing. Birds singing. The distant rumble of traffic. Normal sounds. Peaceful sounds. And Lily, blessedly quiet, was now making soft cooing noises at her new toy. "I don't understand," Rebecca said finally. "I have everything. A successful company, money, a beautiful home. I can give her everything she could ever want. But I can't even calm her down when she cries." Dorothy chuckled softly. "Money doesn't teach you how to be a parent, honey. Neither does success. Those things are nice, sure. But babies don't care about any of that. They just want you. Your time, your attention, your presence." Rebecca thought about her schedule. The endless meetings, the late-night emails, the business trips. She thought about Patricia, the nanny who spent more waking hours with Lily than Rebecca did most days. She thought about how she'd convinced herself that providing for Lily, building a successful company for Lily's future, was the same as being there for her. "I've been so focused on work," Rebecca admitted. "I kept telling myself I was doing it for her, building something for her future. But maybe I was just scared." "Scared of what?" "Of this." Rebecca gestured helplessly at herself, at the situation, of not being good at it. "I can run a company. I can pitch to investors. I can negotiate million-dollar deals. But I can't figure out my own daughter." Dorothy was quiet for a moment, watching Lily play with the little doll. "You want to know a secret?" she said finally. "Nobody knows how to figure out their kids. Not really. Every child is different. Every day is different. You just do your best and hope it's enough." "What if my best isn't enough?" "Your best is always enough," Dorothy said firmly. "The fact that you're worried about it means you care. And caring is half the battle right there." Rebecca looked down at Lily, who had now shoved the doll's yarn hair into her mouth and seemed perfectly content with this arrangement. She looked so peaceful, so different from the screaming, red-faced baby from just minutes ago. "She's beautiful," Dorothy said. "How old?" 6 months. "The hardest age," Dorothy nodded knowingly. "They need you constantly but can't tell you what they need. Gets easier after this, I promise. And then harder again in different ways. But that's parenting for you. Always changing. Always challenging. Always worth it." Rebecca felt something loosen in her chest. Something she'd been holding tight for months. Maybe years. "I've been trying so hard to be perfect. To prove I can do it all. Be the CEO and the perfect mom. Never drop a ball. Never show weakness." "Well, that sounds exhausting," Dorothy said with a gentle laugh. "Nobody can do it all, dear. Nobody, not really. Something always gives. The question is, what are you willing to let give?" It was a question Rebecca had been avoiding for months. She looked at her daughter, peaceful now, making happy gurgling sounds as she played with her simple cloth doll. She thought about the board meeting she'd missed, the deals that might fall through, the work that was piling up, and she realized something. The work would always be there, There would always be another meeting, another deal, another crisis that seemed urgent and important. But Lily wouldn't always be 6 months old. She wouldn't always fit in Rebecca's arms like this. She wouldn't always need her mother in quite this same way. I don't know how to do less, Rebecca said honestly. I don't know how to not work myself to death. It's who I've always been. Then maybe it's time to figure out who you want to be, Dorothy said simply. For her sake. And for yours. Lily yawned, a big baby yawn that scrunched up her whole face. She was getting sleepy now, the crying fit having exhausted her. She snuggled closer to Rebecca's chest, still clutching the cloth doll, her eyelids drooping. Rebecca felt her daughter's weight settle against her, felt her breathing slow and deepen, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt herself relax too. Really relax, not the fake calm she projected in meetings, not the controlled composure she maintained for appearances. Just real, genuine peace. Thank you, Rebecca whispered. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here. Dorothy waved a hand dismissively. You would have figured it out. You always do, but sometimes we all need a little help, a little reminder that we're not alone in this. They sat together on that bench, two women from completely different worlds, connected by the simple, universal experience of caring for a child. And for those few quiet minutes, Rebecca forgot about being a CEO, forgot about her reputation and her company, and her perfectly curated life. She was just a mother, holding her sleeping baby, grateful for the kindness of a stranger. They sat on that bench for almost 20 minutes. Rebecca didn't want to move. For the first time in months, she felt like she could actually breathe. Lily slept peacefully against her chest, the little cloth doll still clutched in her tiny fist. Dorothy sat beside her, occasionally tossing breadcrumbs to the pigeons, not saying much. Just being there, Rebecca's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it. Another message from her assistant. Another from her CFO. The board meeting had ended. People were asking questions. But somehow, sitting here in the park with a sleeping baby and a kind stranger, those messages didn't seem as urgent as they had an hour ago. I should probably get going, Rebecca said, though she made no move to stand up. You've been so kind. I've taken up enough of your time, Dorothy smiled. I've got nowhere else to be, dear. My days are my own now. Still, Rebecca said, I feel like I should do something. To thank you. For everything. She shifted Lily carefully in her arms and reached for her purse. Please, let me give you something. For the doll, at least. Or maybe I could take you to lunch. There's a nice restaurant just a few blocks from here. Dorothy waved her hand, the same dismissive gesture she'd made before. Oh no, honey. Keep your money. Seeing that sweet baby smile was all the payment I need. But the doll, Rebecca insisted. It's so beautifully made. You must have spent hours on it. At least let me pay you for your time. Time. Dorothy laughed, a light musical sound. I've got nothing but time these days. Making these dolls gives me something to do with my hands. Something useful. No. I'm happy Lily likes it. That's enough for me. Rebecca felt something twist in her chest. She looked at Dorothy more carefully now. Really looked. The woman's clothes were clean but old. The floral pattern on her dress was faded from too many washes. Her cardigan had been mended in several places, careful stitches holding together worn fabric. Her shoes were practical, scuffed from years of wear. The canvas bag at her feet was frayed at the edges. This woman had almost nothing, and yet she'd given so freely. Rebecca thought about her own closet at home. Designer dresses she'd worn once, shoes that cost more than most people made in a week, handbags she'd bought on impulse and forgotten about. She had so much, more than she could ever need. And this woman who had so little was refusing her money. Do you live nearby? Rebecca asked. Dorothy nodded. About 15 minutes from here. A little apartment building over on Maple Street. Nothing fancy, but it's home. Do you have family in the area? My kids all moved away for work, Dorothy said, and Rebecca heard something in her voice. Not quite sadness, but a kind of wistful acceptance. My son's in Denver. My oldest daughter is in Seattle. The other two are in Texas. They visit when they can, but you know how it is. Life gets busy. They've got their own families to worry about. That must be lonely, Rebecca said quietly. Dorothy shrugged. Sometimes. But I keep busy. I volunteer at the community center on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Make dolls for the kids at the shelter. Feed the birds. Visit my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, when her arthritis is acting up. You find ways to fill the days. Rebecca felt her throat tighten. This woman spent her time making dolls for children she didn't know, helping neighbors, volunteering, while Rebecca spent her time in boardrooms and on conference calls, always chasing the next deal, the next success, the next thing that would prove her worth. "May I drive you home?" Rebecca asked suddenly. "My car is right over there." "It's the least I can do." Dorothy looked surprised. "Oh, I couldn't impose like that." "You're not imposing, please, I'd like to." "Besides," Rebecca added with a small smile, "I think Lily would want to make sure her new friend gets home safely." Dorothy glanced at the sleeping baby, then back at Rebecca. Something soft passed over her weathered face. "Well, if you're sure it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all." They stood up carefully, Rebecca moving slowly so as not to wake Lily. Dorothy gathered her things, the canvas bag, the paper sack of breadcrumbs now empty. They walked together toward the Mercedes, Dorothy moving with the slow, careful steps of someone whose joints ached with age. James saw them coming and quickly got out to open the door. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Dorothy, but he said nothing. He'd worked for Rebecca long enough to know when not to ask questions. "Thank you, young man," Dorothy said as she settled into the back seat. She ran her hand along the leather upholstery, her eyes taking in the polished wood trim, the gleaming fixtures. "My goodness, this is quite something." Rebecca climbed in beside her, still holding Lily. "Maple Street, James." "Yes, ma'am." As they pulled into traffic, Dorothy looked out the window, quiet. Rebecca watched her, wondering what she was thinking. Was she uncomfortable? Overwhelmed? But Dorothy's face showed only calm interest, as if riding in luxury cars was something she did every day. "You must do very well for yourself," Dorothy said after a moment, "if you don't mind my saying." Rebecca felt her cheeks warm. "I run a tech company. We develop software for businesses. It's done. Well, better than I ever expected, honestly." "That's wonderful," Dorothy said, and she sounded like she meant it. "You must be very smart." "I work hard," Rebecca said. It was the answer she always gave. Work hard enough and success would follow. That's what she'd always believed. What she'd built her entire life around. "And yet here you are," Dorothy said gently. "Exhausted and crying in a park because your baby wouldn't stop crying. Success doesn't make the hard parts easier, does it?" Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes again. "No, it doesn't." They drove in silence for a few minutes. Rebecca looked down at Lily, still sleeping peacefully, her little chest rising and falling with each breath. The cloth doll was tucked under her chin now, held close like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I've been so focused on giving her everything," Rebecca said quietly. "The best of everything. The best nanny. The best toys. The best education when she's older. I wanted her to have all the things I didn't have growing up." "What didn't you have?" Dorothy asked. Rebecca thought about her own childhood. Her parents had worked 3 jobs between them just to keep food on the table. She'd worn second-hand clothes and studied by lamplight because they couldn't afford to heat the whole apartment. She'd built her company partly to prove that she'd escaped that life, that she'd become someone who mattered. "Security," Rebecca said finally. "We never had enough money. I was always worried. Always scared we'd lose our apartment or wouldn't have enough to eat. I swore when I had kids they'd never feel that fear." "That's understandable," Dorothy said. "But honey, there's a difference between giving your children security and giving yourself permission to never be present. Lily doesn't need the best of everything. She needs you, the real you, not the exhausted, stressed-out version who's trying to do it all." The car turned onto Maple Street. It was a different world from Rebecca's neighborhood. Older buildings, cracked sidewalks, a bodega on the corner with hand-painted signs in the window, laundry hanging from fire escapes. This was the kind of neighborhood Rebecca had grown up in, the kind she'd spent her whole adult life trying to escape. "Just here," Dorothy said, pointing to a small apartment building halfway down the block. The brick was weathered, the paint around the windows peeling. But the front steps were swept clean, and someone had planted flowers in window boxes. James pulled up to the curb. Before he could get out, Dorothy opened her own door. "Thank you for the ride, dear. And for the company." "Wait," Rebecca said. She didn't know what made her say it, didn't know what she was even asking for. But she couldn't let Dorothy just walk away. "Not yet?" Dorothy paused, half out of the car, looking back at Rebecca with those kind, understanding eyes. "This might sound strange," Rebecca said, her words coming out in a rush. "But could I?" Could I maybe call you sometime or visit? I don't have many people I can talk to about this kind of thing. About being a mom. About feeling like I'm failing at everything. And you made me feel like maybe I'm not completely hopeless. Dorothy's face softened. She reached back into the car and squeezed Rebecca's hand. Of course, dear. I'd like that very much. She gestured toward the building. Apartment 3B, you're welcome anytime. Though I should warn you, it's nothing like what you're used to. I don't care about that, Rebecca said, and she meant it. Dorothy smiled. I believe you. She pulled a small piece of paper from her bag and a stubby pencil. She wrote down a phone number in shaky handwriting. Here, call me whenever you need to talk. Day or night. I'm usually home. Rebecca took the paper like it was something precious. Thank you, Dorothy. For everything. I mean it. You're going to be just fine, Dorothy said. You and Lily both. Just remember what I said. Be present. That's all they really need. Rebecca watched Dorothy walk slowly up the steps to her building, her canvas bag swinging at her side. The old woman turned at the door and waved. Rebecca waved back, still holding her sleeping daughter, still clutching that slip of paper with the phone number written in shaky handwriting. As James pulled away from the curb, Rebecca looked down at Lily. The baby was still asleep, still peaceful, still holding on to that simple cloth doll like it was the greatest treasure in the world. And Rebecca made a decision. She pulled out her phone and opened her email. She typed quickly before she could change her mind. The message went to her assistant. Cancel my appointments for the rest of the week. Family emergency. I'll check in Monday. Then she turned off her phone completely. For the first time in years, she turned it off and put it away. The world wouldn't end. The company wouldn't collapse. Everything would still be there on Monday, but right now she was going home with her daughter. And they were going to spend the rest of the day together. Just the two of them. No emails, no meetings, no distractions, just being present. The next 3 days changed everything. Rebecca stayed home with Lily. Actually stayed home. No laptop open on the coffee table. No phone calls during nap time. No sneaking into her home office to just check one thing. She was present. Fully, completely present. And it was harder than any board meeting she'd ever run. On the first day, she didn't know what to do with herself. She'd forgotten how to just be with her daughter without multitasking. She kept reaching for her phone out of habit, then remembering she'd promised herself not to. The silence in the house felt strange, uncomfortable. She was used to constant noise, constant demands on her attention, constant motion. But Lily seemed happier. More relaxed. They played on the floor with blocks. Rebecca sang songs, even the ones she didn't know all the words to. She made up silly voices. She read the same picture book 7 times in a row because Lily kept wanting to hear it again. And through it all, Lily carried that cloth doll Dorothy had given her. Miss Button, Dorothy had called it. By the second day, something started to shift. Rebecca found herself laughing more. Really laughing. Not the polite chuckle she used in business meetings. Lily had started making this funny face when she didn't like her strained P's, scrunching up her nose and sticking out her tongue. Rebecca couldn't help but laugh every time. She took a video on her phone, then stopped herself from posting it to social media. This moment was just for them. That evening, after putting Lily to bed, Rebecca sat in the nursery for a long time. She watched her daughter sleep, listened to her soft breathing, and felt something settle in her chest. Something that had been restless and anxious for months finally grew quiet. She thought about Dorothy. About the simple cloth doll that had worked when nothing else would. About the kindness in those weathered eyes. About how a stranger had helped her when she was falling apart. Rebecca picked up her phone and looked at the number Dorothy had given her. It was past 9 o'clock. Too late to call, but she typed out a text message anyway. Hi Dorothy, it's Rebecca from the park. I just wanted to thank you again for your kindness. You changed my whole week. I hope you're doing well. She hit send before she could overthink it. To her surprise, 3 dots appeared almost immediately. How lovely to hear from you, dear. And how is little Lily? Rebecca smiled. She typed back. She's perfect. She carries Miss Button everywhere. Won't let it out of her sight. That makes my heart happy. I told you she was special. They texted back and forth for almost an hour. Dorothy told her about her day at the community center, about the children she'd met, about a funny thing that happened with Mrs. Chen and a locked door. Rebecca told her about playing with Lily, about taking the week off work, about how strange and wonderful it felt to just be mom for a few days. "You sound different," Dorothy wrote. Lighter somehow. Rebecca stared at that message for a long time. Lighter. Yes, that was exactly how she felt. On the third day, Rebecca made a decision. She called Dorothy. "Hello? Dorothy, hi. It's Rebecca. Is this a good time?" "Always a good time for you, dear. What's on your mind?" Rebecca took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about something. About what you said. About being present. And I realized something. I can't be the only mother who feels this way. Who feels overwhelmed and exhausted and like they're failing at everything. You're definitely not alone in that," Dorothy said with a gentle laugh. "And I was thinking about you, about how you make these dolls for children at the shelter, about how you volunteer, about how much you give even though—" Rebecca paused, choosing her words carefully. "Even though you don't have much." "I have enough," Dorothy said simply. "But what if you had more? What if there was a way for you to help even more mothers and children? And what if there was a way for mothers like me to learn from grandmothers like you?" There was silence on the other end. Then Dorothy spoke, her voice curious. "What are you thinking, dear?" Rebecca's mind was racing now. This was what she was good at. Seeing problems and finding solutions. Creating something from nothing. "I want to start something. A program. A place where new mothers can meet with experienced mothers and grandmothers. Where people like you can share your wisdom. Where families can connect across generations." "That sounds lovely," Dorothy said. "But honey, programs like that need money, resources. I wouldn't even know where to begin." "But I do," Rebecca said. "I know how to start things. I know how to build organizations. I know how to get funding. What I don't know is how to be a good mother. But you do. So what if we work together? Your heart and my resources?" Dorothy was quiet for so long Rebecca thought the call had dropped. "Dorothy? Are you still there?" "I'm here," Dorothy said, and her voice sounded thick. Nobody's ever asked me to be part of something like this before. Nobody's ever thought what I have to offer was worth anything." "It's worth everything," Rebecca said firmly. "You saved me that day in the park. You saved Lily too, and I think there are thousands of mothers out there who need exactly what you gave me." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Rebecca said. "Say you'll at least think about it. Maybe we could meet, talk about what it might look like." Another pause. "Then when?" "Tomorrow? I could come to you. Or we could meet somewhere else if you'd prefer." "Why don't you come here?" Dorothy said. "To my apartment. I'll make tea. We can talk properly." "I'd love that," Rebecca said. The next morning, Rebecca dressed Lily in a simple outfit, packed a diaper bag with more supplies than they'd probably need, and drove back to Maple Street. In the daylight, the neighborhood looked different. Not run down exactly, just lived in. Real. Children played in a small playground between buildings. An older man watered plants on his fire escape. Women chatted on stoops while keeping an eye on their kids. Rebecca found a parking spot and carried Lily up to the third floor. The hallway smelled like cooking. Different meals from different apartments mixing together. She found 3B and knocked. Dorothy opened the door wearing the same kind of simple dress she'd worn in the park. Her face lit up when she saw them. Come in, come in." The apartment was small. Tiny, really. One main room that served as living room and kitchen. A door led to what must be a bedroom. Another to a bathroom. But it was clean and bright. Sunlight streamed through windows. Plants sat on every available surface. And everywhere, there were handmade things. Quilts draped over the furniture. Embroidered pillows. Knitted blankets. And on a small table by the window, a dozen cloth dolls in various stages of completion. "It's not much," Dorothy said, a hint of embarrassment in her voice. "It's wonderful," Rebecca said, and she meant it. There was more warmth in this tiny apartment than in her 5,000-square-foot house. Dorothy had set out tea and cookies on her small kitchen table. They sat down, Lily on Rebecca's lap, and started talking. Rebecca shared her vision. A community center where new parents could come for support, where grandmothers and experienced parents could volunteer their time, where people could learn from each other across generations. Classes on parenting, yes, but also on crafts, on cooking, on all the practical skills that used to be passed down naturally, but often weren't anymore. Dorothy listened, her eyes growing brighter with each detail. "And you think people would want this? You think it would help?" "I know it would," Rebecca said, "because it would have helped me." If I'd had somewhere to go when I was drowning, someone to talk to who understood, someone who could show me that I wasn't failing, that this was all normal and hard and okay, it would have changed everything. What about the mothers who can't afford programs like this? Dorothy asked. What about women like I was when my kids were young, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on? Free, Rebecca said. The whole thing would be free. I'd fund it myself, and I'd make sure it was in neighborhoods where people actually need it, not just in wealthy areas. Dorothy's hand went to her chest. Rebecca, that would cost a fortune. I have a fortune, Rebecca said quietly. And what good is it if I can't use it to help people? If I can't use it to make sure other mothers don't feel as alone as I did? Lily chose that moment to reach for one of the unfinished dolls on the table. Dorothy gently handed it to her, watching as the baby examined it with serious concentration. My grandmother used to make dolls like this, Dorothy said softly, during the Depression. She'd make them from scraps, whatever she could find. She'd give them to children who had nothing. I learned from her. I always thought it was a small thing. Just dolls. It's not small, Rebecca said. That doll you gave Lily, it meant everything. It changed everything. That's not small. That's powerful. Dorothy looked at Rebecca, really looked at her. You're serious about this, aren't you? This isn't just some whim? I've never been more serious about anything in my life, Rebecca said. Except maybe Lily. Dorothy reached across the table and took Rebecca's hand. Her skin was papery and thin, but her grip was firm. Then yes, I'll help you. I don't know how much help I'll be, but if you think what I have to offer is valuable, then I'm in. Rebecca felt tears spring to her eyes. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. Oh, I think I do, Dorothy said, smiling. I think I do. They spent the next 2 hours talking, planning, dreaming. Dorothy shared stories from her years of parenting, of volunteering, of working with families at the community center. Rebecca took notes, her mind already racing with possibilities, with ways to turn these stories and wisdom into something that could help thousands of people. When it was time to leave, Dorothy walked them to the door. She touched Lily's cheek gently. You're going to do great things, little one. With a mother like yours, how could you not? Rebecca hugged Dorothy, surprising both of them. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Thank you, Dorothy whispered back. For reminding me that what I have to give still matters. 6 months later, Rebecca stood in front of a building she'd never imagined she'd own. It wasn't in the trendy downtown district where her tech company had its offices. It wasn't in a wealthy suburb with perfect landscaping and expensive cars in the parking lot. It was on Maple Street, 3 blocks from Dorothy's apartment, in the heart of a neighborhood that reminded Rebecca of where she'd grown up. The building had been an old community center, closed for years due to lack of funding. Rebecca had bought it, renovated it, and transformed it into something special. The sign above the door read, "The Dorothy Rose Center," in simple, welcoming letters. Dorothy had cried when she saw her name up there. She'd said it was too much, that it should be called something else, but Rebecca had insisted. This place existed because of Dorothy, because of her kindness, her wisdom, her generous heart. Today was opening day. Rebecca adjusted Lily on her hip. Her daughter was almost a year old now, babbling constantly, trying to walk, getting into everything. And still everywhere Lily went, Miss Button went too. The cloth doll was worn now, loved nearly to pieces, but Lily refused to be separated from it. You ready for this? David asked, squeezing Rebecca's shoulder. He'd come home early from his business trip for the opening. When Rebecca had first told him about her plans to start the center, to step back from her role as CEO and focus on this instead, he'd been surprised. But he'd supported her. He'd seen the change in her, seen how much lighter she'd become. I'm terrified, Rebecca admitted. What if nobody comes? What if this whole thing was just a crazy idea? Then it's the best crazy idea you've ever had, David said. But look, he pointed down the street, people were coming. Mothers pushing strollers, grandmothers walking slowly arm in arm, young fathers looking nervous and out of place. Pregnant women, families. They were coming from every direction, drawn by the flyers that had been posted around the neighborhood, by word of mouth, by the promise of a place where they could find support and connection. Dorothy appeared at Rebecca's elbow. She was wearing a new dress today, one Rebecca had bought for her after Dorothy had finally agreed to accept a salary for her work at the center. Would you look at that? Dorothy breathed. All these people. They're here because of you, Rebecca said. Because people are hungry for what you have to give. We have to give, Dorothy corrected gently. This is ours, dear. Yours and mine. They opened the doors together. The main room was filled with comfortable furniture, soft rugs, toys scattered in corners. One wall was covered with a mural painted by local teenagers depicting families of all kinds, all colors, all shapes. Another room held crisp supplies for the craft classes Dorothy would teach. A kitchen was stocked and ready for the cooking workshops. Small meeting rooms waited for support groups and parenting classes, but the heart of the center was the community room, where people could simply gather, talk, share, be together. Within an hour, the place was full. Mothers sat in circles, some with babies, some with toddlers running wild around them. Dorothy moved among them like she'd been doing this her whole life, stopping to admire a baby here, offer advice there, simply listen when someone needed to talk. Rebecca watched it all unfold with a mixture of pride and wonder. This was so different from her tech company. There were no profit margins to track, no investors to impress, no quarterly goals to meet. Success here was measured in smiles, in tears of relief, in the sound of laughter echoing off the walls. A young woman approached Rebecca, a baby in her arms who couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. The woman looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. "Are you the person who started this place?" "I'm Rebecca. And yes, I helped start it." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I've been so alone. My family is across the country. My husband works crazy hours. I didn't know where to turn. And then I saw a flyer and I thought maybe, just maybe." She trailed off, wiping at her eyes. Rebecca felt her own throat tighten. She saw herself 6 months ago in this woman's face. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the feeling of drowning. "You're not alone anymore," Rebecca said softly. "That's why this place exists. Come, let me introduce you to Dorothy." She led the woman over to where Dorothy was holding court with a group of mothers, all of them laughing at something she'd just said. When Dorothy saw the young woman's face, she immediately made room on the couch beside her. "Now, what's your little one's name?" Dorothy asked warmly, and just like that, the young woman was folded into the circle, given a cup of tea, handed a tissue, surrounded by other women who understood exactly what she was going through. This scene repeated itself throughout the day. Over and over, Rebecca watched as people came in looking lost and left looking lighter. She saw grandmothers teaching young mothers how to swaddle. She saw fathers gathering in one corner, talking nervously about their fears and frustrations. She saw children playing together while their parents actually got to sit down and breathe. In the craft room, Dorothy taught her first official workshop on making cloth dolls. The room was packed. Women of all ages bent over fabric and thread, learning the simple stitches Dorothy's grandmother had taught her so many years ago. Some made dolls for their children. Some made them for grandchildren. Some made them just because creating something with their hands felt good. The secret, Dorothy told them, is not to make them perfect. It's to make them with love. The crooked stitches, the uneven eyes, that's what makes them special. That's what makes them real. Rebecca stood in the doorway watching, Lily still on her hip. Her daughter pointed at the dolls and babbled excitedly, clutching Miss Button tighter. Later that afternoon, a news crew showed up. Rebecca's assistant had tipped off the local station, thinking it would be good publicity. The reporter wanted to interview Rebecca, to talk about the successful CEO who'd started a charity, to make it into a feel-good story about wealthy people giving back. But Rebecca redirected them to Dorothy. "She's the real story here," Rebecca insisted. "I just provided the building. Dorothy provided the heart." So they interviewed Dorothy instead. The camera caught her in the middle of the doll-making workshop, surrounded by mothers and grandmothers, all of them stitching and talking and laughing together. They caught her gentle wisdom, her warm smile, her absolute certainty that what they were doing mattered. "Why do you think a place like this is important?" the reporter asked. Dorothy thought for a moment, then said, "Because we've forgotten how to be together, how to help each other. We all live in our separate boxes, struggling alone, thinking we're the only ones who don't have it all figured out. But here we can be honest. We can admit that parenting is hard, that life is hard, that we need each other, and we can help each other through it." The reporter turned to the mothers in the workshop. "And what has this place meant to you?" One by one they shared. The single mom who'd been at her breaking point until she found this community. The grandmother who'd been lonely since her husband passed. The new father who didn't know how to connect with his baby until he took one of the classes. The immigrant mother who felt isolated in a new country until she found other mothers here who welcomed her. Their stories were different, but the theme was the same. They'd all been alone. They'd all been struggling, and this place had given them something they desperately needed: connection. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Rebecca and Dorothy sat together in the quiet center. Lily was asleep in her stroller, Miss Button tucked under her chin. The place was a mess, toys everywhere, dishes in the sink, chairs pushed out of place. It was beautiful. "We did it," Rebecca said softly. "We did," Dorothy agreed, "though I still can't quite believe it." Believe it. "You saw those people today. You saw what this place gave them." Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what the best part is? In 6 months, maybe a year, some of those mothers who came here today feeling lost, they'll be the ones helping the next wave of new mothers. They'll pass on what they learned. That's how it works. That's how we heal each other." Rebecca thought about her own journey. 6 months ago, she'd been crying in a park, convinced she was failing at everything that mattered. Today, she was different. Not perfect, not even close. She still had hard days with Lily. She still sometimes missed the adrenaline rush of closing a big deal. But she was present now. She was connected. She knew what mattered. And she'd learned it all from a stranger on a bench who'd had the kindness to help a crying mother and her crying baby. "I never thanked you properly," Rebecca said, "for that day in the park. You changed my life, Dorothy. You changed everything." Dorothy reached over and patted Rebecca's hand. "You changed mine too, dear. You gave me purpose again. You showed me that I still have something valuable to give. We saved each other, I think." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Lily sleep, thinking about all the families they'd helped today and all the families they'd help tomorrow. The work would continue. The center would grow. More mothers would come through those doors feeling lost and leave feeling found. More grandmothers would share their wisdom. More families would connect across generations. But the heart of it all would always be the same. The simple truth that Dorothy had shown Rebecca on that park bench. That kindness matters. That presence matters, that we all need each other more than we know. And sometimes, the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They can only be given freely from one human heart to another. Outside, the sun was setting over Maple Street. The sign for the Dorothy Rose Center glowed softly in the fading light. Inside, 3 people who'd found each other when they needed it most sat together in the peaceful quiet. A crying millionaire's baby had been stunned by kindness. And that kindness had rippled out, touching more lives than anyone could count. Proving that sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest changes. And it all started with a handmade doll, a park bench, and 2 women who chose to see each other's humanity instead of their differences. That was the real miracle. Not the building or the programs or the money. Just people choosing to help each other, choosing to be present, choosing to give what they could, whether it was much or little, choosing kindness. And in the end, that changed everything.